Assalamu alaikum. In this video, we are going to discuss this brain, this elephantine level, large brain, which we can see many the structures we can see in many more details. We saw this inferior part in another video, and these structures are present magnified in this brain, and we are also showing the cerebellum in this brain. So going from anterior towards the posterior, this is the anterior part of the brainstem. The structures we can visualize are the inferior part of the orbital or the orbital part of the frontal lobe of the hemisphere. This is the olfactory bulb, the olfactory tract, the medial and the lateral olfactory stria, and in between them here is the anterior perforated substance. This is the gyrus rectus. Beneath the olfactory bulb is the olfactory sulcus, and these are the multiple orbital gyri. This is the median sulcus, the main sulcus, which divides the two cerebral hemispheres. Moving backwards, this is the optic chiasm. When joined together, this is the optic chiasm. This is the hypophysis cerebri. If I remove the hypophysis cerebri, below it we can see the mammillary bodies, and beneath the mammillary bodies here is the posterior perforated substance and the start of the midbrain here. After that, this is the pons, this is the medulla oblongata, and the cerebellum, which is connecting to the pons through three peduncles, and the main peduncle is the middle cerebellar peduncle. If we look at the posterior inferior part, we separate the cerebellar hemispheres. So these cerebellar hemispheres, they have this middle cerebellar peduncle. This one is the superior cerebellar peduncle, and this one is the some sort of inferior cerebellar peduncle. This is the flocculonodular lobe, and this is the central part of the cerebral hemisphere, and it has these markings which are called the arbor vitae. If we open up the cerebellar hemispheres, we see four bundles of nuclei going lateral towards the medial side. It is the mnemonic, which is doctors eat good food. So this is dentate, then emboliform, then these three multiple nuclei are the globose, and this one, which is shaped like just a small F, if we see it like this is the vestigial nucleus. So dentate, emboliform, globose, vestigial nuclei going lateral to medial. Doctors eat good food. After this, if we look at the brain stem, we will visualize it like this. So this is the anterior part of the brainstem. In this part, what we can see is this is the medulla oblongata, this is pons, and above it, this part here is the midbrain. I've brought this other part out to show you the midbrain and the crura of the midbrain. These are the crura of the midbrain. So I'm going to remove it now. And what we can see is in the midbrain, these are the nerves that are coming out of the anterior part. This projection is pyramid, this projection is olives. Between the pyramids and olives, this is the hypoglossal nerve. This nerve, which is present at the junction of the pons and the medulla oblongata, this is the sixth cranial nerve, which is the abducent nerve, and lateral part of the junction gets two nerves, which is the facial and the vestibulocochlear. Two are the branches of facial, and this is the vestibulocochlear eighth nerve. So sixth, seventh and eighth nerves, they come out of the junction of the medulla and pons. Between the pyramid and the olives, this was the hypoglossal nerve. If we move backwards, there are three nerves that emerge after the olives. Here the anatomic condition of the model is not appropriate, but the nerves that come out of it are the glossopharyngeal nerve, the vagus nerve, and then the branches of the accessory nerve. So these are the branches of the accessory nerve, and it has the anterior and posterior rootlets. So these are the branches of the accessory nerve. These are the branches of vagus nerve, and this is the glossopharyngeal nerve. So these are the nerves that are present here. This is pyramid, this is olive, between these two is the hypoglossal nerve. Then going backwards, this is glossopharyngeal, vagus, and then the accessory nerve, spinal accessory nerve. Going upwards, this is pons with its transverse fibers, transverse pontine fibers, superficial fibers, and at the lateral part of the pons, this is the trigeminal nerve. Trigeminal nerve also has the larger sensory root and a smaller motor root that are coming out of the substance of the pons. If we move upwards at the junction of the pons and the midbrain, these are the crux of the midbrain, which are showed over here like this. These are the crura of the midbrain, this part. So the nerve that is coming in the midline anteriorly, this is the oculomotor nerve, and the nerve which comes out of the posterior side and then moves out on the lateral and then towards the front, this is the trochlear nerve. So the third and fourth nerves, they come out of the junction of the midbrain with the pons. Third nerve in front, the oculomotor nerve, and the fourth nerve from behind, the trochlear nerve. The pons also has this large middle cerebral peduncle. This is the superior cerebellar peduncle, which join the brainstem to the cerebellum. If we move upwards, this is the part of the midbrain. In the midbrain, what we can see is, if we look at the posterior aspect for a second, that there are two colliculi, the inferior colliculus and the superior colliculus, which are present on the posterior aspect of the midbrain. These colliculi contain nuclei which are the same named nucleus, the nucleus of the inferior colliculus, which is shown here, and above it there will be the nucleus of the superior colliculus. The midbrain is divided into three parts. The posterior most part is tectum. This part is tectum. Then between the tectum and the substantia nigra is tegmentum, and in front of the tegmentum, in front of the substantia nigra, this black line, this part is called the crux cerebri, and all of the motor and the sensory information and the tracts are running through this crux cerebri. Between the two crux cerebri, this is the interpeduncular fossa, and in this interpeduncular fossa, the oculomotor nerve emerges from the midbrain. This is the cerebral aqueduct, which continues from the fourth ventricle, moves in the substance of the midbrain, and then opens in the third ventricle.